I just wanted to say before we started the video, a big thank you to all of you guys who have been watching. We hit 100 subs and then we hit 200 subs, and now I'm seeing creators that I watch in my comments section. I'm even getting a shout out on Ivega's channel. So I really appreciate all the likes and the comments and interactions. That stuff's so awesome. I really do read all of that stuff. And I wanted to give you guys a big ups before we started the video, just in case you don't make it to the outro where I'm going to do it again.
Good evening, everyone. Phil here, and welcome to the Daily Wrap for what was my final consecutive streaming day of the week, October 4th, 2023, a Wednesday. We got a lot to talk about today. In fact, after tonight's Street Fighter stream, I've got a lot to say.
More excuses and coping, I'm sure.
Now, I'll more fully go over this when I come back on Friday because tomorrow is my day off. But we did a little experiment tonight with Street Fighter, and I have empirical proof of what I've been saying all along. I'm very pleased that we did it this way. Let's talk.
Something tells me, just by the way he said the word empirical, that he doesn't actually understand what that means and he's using it improperly.
Okay. Tonight's Street Fighter 6 stream was likely the most interesting one I've done in ages, and here's why. When I played Street Fighter 6 on Monday night, this last Monday, it was my first ever master-only stream.
And you got absolutely obliterated. And we all remember the conspiracy segment that we got the next day. You're absolutely certain that Big PC is plotting against you and it's all the Cannon brothers' fault. Yeah, we remember.
And as I was playing it, I distinctly noticed that as I was playing, the game was dropping my inputs, making it so that the timing of my combos, that was basic combos, would not come out properly online, and was essentially making me lose a lot of matches.
He says the game was making him do that. The game made him drop his inputs. The game made him lose. I mean, yeah, on a really fundamental level, the game did make you lose. If the game didn't exist, you wouldn't have lost for sure, whatever. But the game is not plotting against you. I don't know why you're so convinced it is. I've never heard someone theorycraft so hard about why they lost an online match. Which, if you recall, he said in the last video that it's just practice anyway, so I don't know why he's so butthurt about it.
And I surmised in my head that the reasoning that this is probably happening is because I would guess that the vast majority of people who are at master level are playing on PC.
And now he's surmising. Someone needs to take this guy's dictionary away or his word of the day calendar or wherever he's pulling these words from. Between empirical, surmising, and curated, this dude needs to just stick to words that he knows. I know that he thinks it makes him sound smarter, but everyone else just sees a clown who's out of his element using big words that he doesn't understand.
It has been discovered, not really discovered, but it's kind of been a known thing in the FGC that if you're going to be a pro player at this point, you need to have a gaming PC because you have less input lag and less dropped inputs and less delay when you play these games online.
Where is he getting this information from? Like, he knows if he's gonna say this shit on stream, he's gonna get a bunch of pushback from a bunch of different people, obviously. So if there's some sort of forum or social media post that he could pull up on his stream, he should be doing that. If he had some sort of conversation with an FGC guy behind the scenes, he needs to post those DMs. Because when he says things like this, like, oh, it's just known in the FGC, he's not really telling us anything or proving a fucking thing. Maybe the biggest reason that FGC players play on PC is because they want to stream the game, or they just want the most customizable setup possible. Like, it really could just be a preference outside of the game. But we would never know because he doesn't ever provide any sort of proof at all. And all these claims about less input delay, less dropped inputs, this, that, and the other. Dude, you have, again, no evidence for this at all. How are you, someone who's never played Street Fighter 6 on PC, going to tell other people who do play Street Fighter 6 on PC what their experience is? And again, if he could just get evidence of someone else saying that these things are true, someone that does actually play on PC and experiences this, the story would be completely different, but he's just theory crafting.
Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Initially, when they analyzed Street Fighter 6 when it came out, it looked like all platforms were equal.
And I'd rather believe those 4-month-old experiments that were done with the proper tools to do experimentation than whatever half-baked experiment your gin-filled brain thought of while you were seething before bed.
But you're going to notice something when you watch my gameplay both from Monday night and tonight is the telling thing, so I'll explain in a moment. You're going to notice the vast majority of people playing in Master Tier are playing on PC. Why would you think that is?
And I said this before in the last video, and I'll say it again just as a refresher for anyone who didn't see it. My main theory, aside from this just being entirely a cope, is that PC players tend to just play more seriously, and that's one of the reasons they would have bought a PC and spent all that money. because playing on PC can become a very involved process if you let it. So I imagine someone who's willing to put the time and the money to play on PC would probably put in the time and dedication to get good at the game. Now, I know this isn't a universal rule, but it's been my experience, especially when I switched from console to PC years and years ago, that the caliber of player on PC is just higher typically.
Coincidence? It just so happens that everyone has a PC version? No. Someone actually on my stream tonight pulled up sales statistics, and here's what they found.
And this will be another example of DSP citing sources and not showing his stream at all. Because if someone really cited these sources at him, they should have DM'd it to him and he should have brought them up on his OBS and showed the stream. Because DSP is a compulsive liar and I really don't trust anything he says at this point. Especially if it's gonna support this weird conspiracy theory that he's got going here. Like, I know it's just sales statistics and I wouldn't think that he would lie about it, but really, how hard is it to just pull it up on the stream? It would just add a level of authenticity.
57% of people own this game, Street Fighter 6, on PS5. 23%, excuse me, own it on PC. Only about 17% or 13% own it on Xbox, and then like 7 or something percent own it on PS4. Okay?
And that right there is why he should have just pulled up the goddamn numbers on the stream. Specifically because last time he said that Xbox was like 15%, and then he just said that it's 17% or maybe 13%. It can't be both of them. It's got to be one or the other. And if he would have just pulled the numbers up on the stream, this wouldn't have been a question at all. And PS4 is 7 or something percent. And I know I've been out of school for quite a while, not as long as ALT or anything, but I don't ever remember being taught or something when we were learning our numbers.
So Xbox is almost non-existent. PS4, you'll never probably play anyone on PS4, quite frankly. It's always going to be someone on PS5 or PC the vast majority of the time. Almost no one bought it on the other platforms, okay?
If you add up the percentages from Xbox and PS4, you get about 25%. So about a quarter of the population of Street Fighter 6 is almost no one, according to DSP. A quarter of the player base is nobody. How am I supposed to believe any experiment that comes from a guy who describes a quarter of the player base as nobody? It's just not an accurate descriptor.
So if that's the case, if over 50% of the people who bought this game own it on PlayStation 5, it stands to reason that when I'm playing this game at the master level, if it's fair and if it makes sense, then I should be playing more than half my matches against people on PS5.
I mean, sure, in a perfect world, but that's not typically how things work. Most things don't work out exactly how they should statistically. Just because 50% of the player base is on PS5 doesn't mean that 50% of the time you're going to be fighting PS5 players. Just like in how some games there's map rotations, and sometimes it feels like you're getting the same map all the time and you never get the map you want, even though they all have the same percentage chance of popping up in the rotation. Sometimes it just don't work out perfectly.
We did the numbers tonight. Are you ready for this? So I think it was a total of 27 matches. And when I say matches, I mean, let me rephrase that. 27 sets. 27 sets against 27 different players, okay? Out of those players, 4 were on PlayStation 5. 2 were on Xbox. 21 players at the master level were on PC. And before you say, well, how do you know? When you're on PlayStation and you're playing PlayStation, it says it right on the screen. I only fought 4 PlayStation players tonight, despite the fact that more than half the people who own the game own it on PlayStation. Only 4 people at master level were on PlayStation. Now you might say, well, how did you know about the 2 Xbox? Someone was actually looking up the accounts of the people I was playing and researched them and found 2 Xbox players. So we could be off by 1 or 2, but essentially they found the accounts. Those are Xbox Live accounts. Those are Xbox Live players.
This is the worst experiment I've ever heard of. Like, he didn't even look up the accounts himself. He was just trusting whatever Dent was in his chat saying this. Not exactly a very scientific method, especially when there's so many goddamn LARPers in his chat. You can't trust anything them people say. And isn't all of this recorded on the Street Fighter 6 website or whatever? Like, they have footage and all of the information from every game that you play. That'd be such a useful tool for Phil to utilize and show on stream.
So yeah, 2 people on Xbox, 4 on PlayStation 5, 21 players on PC. You do the math. You do the percentages. That's an insane amount of players at master level are playing on PC only. Why? Because there's an unfair advantage. There's no other explanation.
There's no other explanation. It literally couldn't be anything else. It couldn't be that he's getting old and his reaction times are turning to dog shit. It couldn't be that he's not actually as good as he thinks he is. It couldn't be that he doesn't put in nearly the amount of time that is required to play at a competitive level. It's not the joystick, it's not the TV, it's not even rollback netcode's fault. It's just that PC has an advantage. Whatever nondescript, uncertain advantage that is, that's obviously the only answer.
Why, if over half the people who own this game own it on PS5, would so few people be playing it at master level on PS5? Because all the PC players have an unfair advantage, and they got to master, and they're just abundantly playing at that level because it's unfair.
It's wild to me that he doesn't even consider that maybe despite there being more PS5 players, they're just not nearly as skilled on a statistical average. That he really thinks for this to make any sense that PC has to have an advantage. That the numbers couldn't just work out this way naturally. And again, presenting this as if it was some sort of evidence to prove his point. He's showed no supporting data at all, and the only thing that he can even claim is these random handful of games that he played on a random Wednesday night. In order for an experiment to be reliable, it has to be replicable. And there's no way possible to replicate what he's done here. Like, this whole thing really was just play a bunch of games, figure out what platform they play on, kind of, and then declare that because there's more PC players, they inherently have an advantage. That doesn't prove anything. You just look crazy, and you say it with such certainty. This guy really got himself with his own pig noses.
And that sucks, you know? Now, I'm not saying they're cheating. What I mean is, for example, they're not using macros, they're not having it do moves for them, but essentially, they probably have way less input delay, they probably have way less dropped inputs, and their connections just in general are better.
All of that is speculation with no evidence, but go on.
While I'm playing, and like I said, I played on Monday night, my moves were dropping constantly, right in the middle of a 3-hit combo. Roundhouse, Fierce, Coward Crouch, Fierce. Second Fierce doesn't come out. First Fierce won't come out. What?
And it's very telling that your first thought when these things were happening was instantly that it was the game's fault, that the PC players must have had some sort of advantage. I don't think for 1 second you even considered the idea that it might have been you. But that's just how big this guy's ego is. He did nothing wrong, he did everything correct.
What the fuck are you talking about? It's boom, boom, boom. It's the easiest combo in the game. I've done it thousands of fucking times since I played the game in June. How the fuck are you going to tell me I don't know how to do a 3-hit combo yet?
They're not saying that you don't know how to do the 3-hit combo. But even if you've done something 1,000 times, it doesn't mean that you can't fuck up the inputs. It doesn't mean that you can't mistime it. You could work at the same job for 25 years. But that doesn't mean that every task that you do, even if you do them every single day, you're gonna 100% nail flawlessly. Because that's just not how life works. It's not that consistent. But instead of taking this and learning from it and just having to better yourself, you've instead completely shirked all of the blame onto the game.
The game is actually unfair online. If you're playing anyone who's PC and you're not on PC, they have an advantage over you. They don't have the same issues with dropped inputs. They're getting better input delay. You know, they can react. How is it that I'm instantly, when I do my drive impact, they get drive impact and counter hit me?
It's because they're better than you, and it's really as simple as that.
But when they do it, as soon as I press, nothing happens half the time. Just, where is it? Where is my drive impact? It never comes out. It's not fair. It's bullshit. And I really feel it's a problem. I knew all about this earlier this year.
But it wasn't a major complaint of yours up until now. So just like the Mr. Wizard situation, instead of saying anything and being vocal about a problem that's in the community, you decided to keep your head down because it didn't affect you? That just sounds like cowardice, Phil.
When I was talking with other people in the FGC, and they were telling me about, did you know that there's actually operating systems that are being created on PC that are being tweaked to run fighting games better for less input delay and less dropped inputs with rollback netcode?
There's operating systems? Like a Windows or a Linux operating system. I find that very hard to believe that someone bothered making an entire operating system to play Street Fighter 6 with less input delay. But again, he doesn't show any evidence of this. He doesn't show these DMs. He doesn't tell us who he was talking to. And this might sound lazy on my behalf, but the burden of proof is not on me. I'm not gonna go out looking for this strange operating system that he claims exists, because I believe the game is working as designed. Phil's the one here who's got this extraordinary claim.
Street Fighter 6 is one of the prominent games that this is being featured in. So, yeah, it's pretty sad that the vast majority of players who got to Master got there only because they're playing on PC. Now, that's definitely a generalization. That's me being salty. They didn't get there only because they're on PC, but you know they had an advantage.
I would like to point out him walking back that statement, though, because it is one of the only times I've ever seen him walk something back because even he knew that he was just being salty. And that's commendable to some extent. So I'm gonna give the man some credit, because he typically doesn't have that sort of self-reflection.
Right? Every single time I'm playing these people, I have to work twice as hard. I have to have insanely perfect timing. I have to try so hard. There were matches tonight. Again, oh, by the way, of the PC players I played, I won 12 and lost 11. I think that's what people said. It was 12 and 11, something like that, okay? If that's the case, if you look at the matches, you'll distinctly see I have matches won and my inputs don't come out. I'm in the corner and I'm doing a combo and the combo just drops for no reason, and then because the move came out that was the wrong move, they get a full punish combo, game over. Or I'm just standing there, they do a drive rush across the entire screen, low kick, and I block low, game doesn't block, game over, 70% combo. And it's like, I didn't do it.
I mean, there's no way for us to tell the difference between a dropped input or you just mashing or pressing the incorrect button or getting the wrong timing. So to say that we could go back and tell, I mean, that's just not true. We just have to take you at your salty ass word for it. But I do think it's really funny that he mentioned them getting a 70% combo just because he dropped his input, when that was one of the huge reasons he gave for not liking MK1. He said over and over and over again that he didn't like the game because all it took is one hit and all of a sudden they were getting a 60% combo. But that happens in Street Fighter 6 and he doesn't even bat an eye at it. Only that it happened because he apparently dropped an input.
Sorry, I will not take credit for a loss when I'm not losing. If you outplayed me, if you fooled me, if you tricked me, if I made a horrible mistake, like I'm spamming drive impact, I miss an anti-air, I do the wrong move, that's one thing. But I'm not going to say, oh yeah, these people massively outplayed me, when literally it's because the execution doesn't come out because the fucking netcode is worse on PS5. Or the input delay or whatever it may be. That's bullshit.
You don't have to take credit for a loss for the loss to remain true. So by you not taking credit, it doesn't change the outcome at all. It just makes you look like a salty bitch. And no one's looking for you to say that you got massively outplayed after every single loss or anything. I think if you just had a little grace in your defeat and just kind of accepted that you lost the match and moved on, nobody would have a problem with you playing Street Fighter 6. But you've never been capable of just accepting a loss. At least not in the 15 years that you've been on YouTube, and there's evidence that even before you were on YouTube, you couldn't take a loss then either.
It's not fair. So you might say, well, are you going to just give up? No, I'm not. But I'm going to have to accept the fact that moving forward, and we're going to continue to track this, by the way. Well, every time I play this game at Master, we're going to see how many people are on PC versus how many people are on console, and what's my win-loss ratio, okay?
I'm really curious as to what he meant when he said that he was going to have to accept and then he cut himself off. But obviously it was more important that he told us he wasn't going to let this go and he was going to continue to be a salty little baby. And that we're going to continue to track this so that he can gloat about how he's beating PC players, even though they have some weird fake advantage over him or something.
But the way I see it is, we're going to continue to track it, but I'm not going to give up. I worked hard, really hard, to get to Master with 3 characters on PS5. Probably harder than most of those people who were sitting there on PC, because they had the advantage over me the entire time that I was trying to grind up there. That's pretty ridiculous and unfair. And we have the evidence to fucking prove it.
Hey DSP, your victim complex is showing. Because again, with literally zero evidence that he had to work harder, maybe even twice as hard as these PC players, because they had the advantage the whole time. This advantage that he's only been talking about very recently, that he convinced himself of actually the day prior.
There is absolutely no reason why on any given night playing at Master Rank, I should be playing literally 90% of the players on PC when only 20-some% of the players own it on PC.
So in the last video, we could see from Piece of Pieces information that just under half of the people that he played were on a console. So I don't know where he's getting this any given night 90% are on PC thing. And then again, the stream that was directly before this segment that he's talking about, according to his own numbers, it's only 77% of the players were on PC. And I think anyone who's done any sort of science experiment worth their salt would never call 77% 90%. Misrepresenting your results is a a surefire way to make you look unreliable. And these are based off of his numbers, because I don't have Piece of Pieces info on this one. He was just too lazy to do his own actual percentages so he could talk accurately about the thing that he thinks is evidence. Just goes to show how meaningful and curated this content really is.
That's ludicrous. There's obviously a direct connection between that, and that's not fair. So I'll talk more in depth about this on the podcast come Friday, and we'll go from there. But yeah, it is pretty disheartening to know that this is the situation. Remember, back in the day, everything was equal ground. There was no PC version of the game. It was either you play on Xbox or you play on PS3, and there's no crossplay.
And people asked for years for crossplay to exist. Because you know what's more important than even competition for a silly online game? Is having a good time with your friends and making happy memories with them. So regardless of whatever downside comes with crossplay, I think being able to play a game with someone who shares a common interest with you is more important.
So everyone was on the same amount of input lag, the same amount of issue with the netcode. Everyone had the same issues, and you just had to deal with it. Now it's like, this person has an advantage over this person, has this person, this joystick's better than this joystick, and this one is this. It's like, what the fuck is this? All I want to do is play a game and get good, and I can't.
Odd that he would use the joystick as an example, being that he's the owner of a brand new joystick. So he at least acknowledges to some extent that the advantage that a joystick might give him is equivalent to any other type of advantage anyone else might be experiencing.
Because the way you designed your game is flawed. That's sad. Especially because this game has such good netcode. And the fact that I lose to nonsense. Like, no exaggeration, there was a Zangief, and I'm not saying the Zangief was bad. This guy 360 grabbed me through everything I tried to do. Was he perfectly timing it, or was the game deciding to drop my inputs and give him the bashed 360 because he was on PC?
The only reasonable assumption that you could come to is that he's just perfectly timing it and your ass. That's just the mindset you gotta have.
It was ridiculous. I was in the middle of a combo on the guy, and he got a level 3 super. I did not mistime the combo. The combo was perfectly timed and should have connected, and because he mashed level 3 super, and he's on PC, it gave him the level 3 super.
And how do you know that it was perfectly timed? Did you run the entire game's code and inputs through your fucking brain before it happened? That just doesn't make any sense. You are not allowed to say that it's perfectly timed. It's not up to you. The game doesn't actually care what you fucking think, because you don't get to decide when things are perfectly timed and when they're not.
It's not legit gameplay. It's sad.
But that's going to do it for today's video. I thought it was a nice follow-up to the previous video, especially with his new empirical evidence that he presented to us. Obviously, it's all a big cope and or a sly way for him to start begging for a PC. I mean, he's got to switch to PC at some point, right? But I want to say big ups to all of you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. The support is always nice, and especially recently is wild. You guys are crazy. Hopefully I see all of you guys in the next video. But until then, make sure you guys check out other detractor channels and dive deeper into that Snortex.